Thank you, Laura, for that eloquent speech. Making the second case for the opposition, we have Lord Greenhalgh. Lord Greenhalgh is a Conservative member of the House of Lords. He previously served as the Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime in London from 2012 to 2016 and was Minister of State in the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. Most notably, he served as President of the Cambridge Union in Lent 1988. Lord Greenhalgh, it's a pleasure to have you back.
Well, it's fantastic. It's only been an interlude of 35 years to return to this place, and it hasn't changed much. I sat where you sat, and the power seeped away from me, and it was a massive relief. And we shared one thing in common, which was 35 years ago, I chose the wrong motion for my presidential debate. 35 years ago, can you imagine it? This was the time when the walls coming down, communism was collapsing, and we were at the height of ideology and conviction politics, and I chose the motion, this House believes that packaging has become more important than the politics. Rained against me, I had Douglas Hurd, who was the then Home Secretary. I had the Bill Deeds, many of you may not know, a fantastic newspaper man. Paul will certainly know him. But also next to him was someone you may not know, Sir Giles Shaw, a distinguished backbench MP, who'd been a former president of the Union. I think he got about 3 blues. But he also worked for Cadbury's. And famously, the best line of the night was, I'm facing Fleet Street, Deeds, Downing Street, Hurd, and Quality Street. But, my debate was wrong for that time, and I think your debate's wrong for this time, because I come from, you have to look at your heritage when you join the Lords, and going back, mine's solidly working class. Fred Poynton, my great-grandfather, was a founder member of the Independent Labour Party, and in the 1920s, he would have been sitting with you. I would have been sitting with you. Fred had to walk many, many miles to get work. He walked until he found work. He found it in a place called Ilkeston. And he had to sort of work as a labourer, and he did those jobs, and then in Stanton Iron Works is where he got his opportunity to earn an honest wage. But though going to work in those days wasn't like going to work today. In fact, getting people to work, in my experience, is the hardest job today. But going to work was actually, health and safety was non-existent, people died at work. And so he fought the gaffers. It's a phrase that many of you won't have heard of. He fought the gaffers because he wanted to ensure that you got a decent wage and you were safe. And he worked all his life, and at the end of it, he became mayor of his hometown of Ilkeston and showed great civic leadership. A working class man through and through. His daughter went to the school that my father went to, but she had to leave school at 14. Despite winning a scholarship and having the uniform paid, she left school at 14, but she had the pride to see my father come to this university, the first person in our family to be educated in Oxford or Cambridge or any place, as he puts it. So I'm delighted to be back. But I know where socialism started, and it's got a noble tradition, but it's not what's needed today. And I'm going to make the arguments in simple terms. You talk about inequality, you talk about cost of living, you talk about strikes, and you talk about the NHS. Somewhere where my father worked all his life, Professor Greenhalgh, still an active researcher at the age of 82. When I went into politics and I lost, my career was built on a solid foundation of failure, let me tell you. 10 years in opposition. And the Labour teller came up to me and he said, I always wanted to meet you, Stephen. Your dad saved my life, but I won't be voting for you. I understand that. That's democracy, and we've got that. Let's preserve that. We've got democracy. But we've got other problems that are not in the way that you've profiled this debate. We've got economic stagnation. We've got the biggest tax burden since the Second World War, the biggest tax burden on individuals. That's a huge disincentive on enterprise and the things that grow an economy. And I pay tribute to the President because the President kept it simple. He said, this is all about the redistribution of wealth. Oh, I'll give way. Come on, have you got something to say?
I think the fact that we have the highest tax burden with degrading services is an indictment of status quo politics and not...
And I'm going to make the case for... I'm certainly not making the case for the status quo. I never underestimate the case of the status quo. I'm going to make the case of not being like Robert Walpole. I am certainly no saint. I'm certainly no Spartan, as you can tell. I wasn't this way when I was back then in 1988, I can tell you. But I am a reformer. I do believe in reform. And the way forward is the sort of gradual, evolving reform that makes real difference. And yes, we can see reform, but it doesn't have to be systemic, radical, all-in-one-go reform. Reform can happen, and do you know how it happens? And I make the case for that. It doesn't happen by having one way of doing things, one view that comes through from many of the undergraduates, like one view that if we share the wealth equally, we'll all be happy. No, it doesn't come from that. It doesn't come from that. It comes from a belief that, no, someone else wants to say something. Please go ahead.
Yeah, it's not about everyone being happy, it's about everyone being housed, fed and healthy.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And as someone that won a council from Labour that had 33% social housing, lots of people in temporary accommodation, I understand the need to have stable homes. And I absolutely think that's not something that is about party. It's about how you achieve that. And the way you achieve that is by ensuring we build more homes. And I went resolutely, as a Conservative politician, to build thousands upon thousands of new homes in areas that were in areas of deprivation. So yes, the point is right, but the question is how you achieve it. And I don't think that's a party political point. We all want safe and secure housing. You want to go again?
Yeah, sorry. We built thousands of millions of new homes, yet people aren't living in them, and you cannot afford them. There's no point in building new houses when people's living wage is less than it was in 2007.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think you solve that through slicing the pie equally. You achieve things by, I mean, if you really want to know about how you raise all boats, surely it's about growing the pie. What is going to grow the pie? Then there's more to put back into the economy. I believe certainly in one thing, let me tell you, that's equality of opportunity. Everything we can do as politicians to get the starting... Oh, and I'll take another... Yes, please.
I want to talk about,
I can't really get my thoughts together at this rate, but, this is the last one. Go ahead.
Growing the pie. I mean, the problem with that is that's the model that Tony Blair based
good man.
his government on. And the
He's a Labour
way
man.
he did that is he said, right, we'll have the financial sector, will grow lots and lots of money, and we'll use a little bit of that, we'll slice a bit off the top to then fund massive increases in spending on healthcare and education. But the problem is that was based on a bubble, because the financial sector is very prone to rises and bursts. So we're not really going to grow the pie. What we want to do is grow the pie at an inflated rate, maybe scrape a bit of pastry off the top, and then the pie just disappears every 10 years in a business cycle. It's not a very sustainable model. Actually, look at the pie we currently have. We have enough houses, we have enough food in the world, no one should be hungry in the world. All shortage, all need in the world is a political decision. Every famine that we've had in the last 100 years is a failure of distribution and not a failure of production.
Okay. Well, if it's all about distribution and not about growth and enterprise, I don't know which world you've been living in up to now, but I have to say that as someone that recognises the value of enterprise, I think you're absolutely fundamentally wrong. If you want to see the entrepreneurs of tomorrow, if you want to see the economy grow, you've got to encourage that to happen. It doesn't just happen. It's the sweat of the brow that you see things germinate. And you start a business from a bedroom. You work hard, you have an idea. You've got many chances of failing. You probably will fail. You need an environment that encourages you to succeed. Oh, I'll always give way to the president. The ex-president.
The ex-president. Would you not agree that the thing that stops innovation, people taking that risk, is the idea of failure? Worry about their families, worry about their security, worry about their children. So what we're proposing on this, or what I've proposed, is a way to alleviate that risk, which would allow our economy to be more innovative. Would you not also agree that when someone is starting a company, they are more interested in where the next £10,000 is coming from, the next 100,000, not the next 10 billion or 100 billion is coming from?
Okay, well, unfortunately, Mr. Ex-President, I started a business from my bedroom that today employs over 50 people. Employs people mainly in London, some in the United States, and it's now many millions. And it was from my bedroom. And the thing that drove me is absolutely what you've described, but not in the way you think, a fear of failure. And yes, the first time I started my business, I failed. And what we have to see in this room is people who are prepared to fail and look failure in the eye and don't fear it. I'm going to give way again, because I'm giving way every 2 seconds at this rate. You have to have the fear of failure. You've got to be prepared to fail, but then you get up again and then you try again with a business that does succeed. That happened in my case. So I want all those people in this room that think about enterprise to be prepared to fail, to fear failure, and to embrace competition. Because you know what? I'm going to come to the end of my speech because I've got not much more to say. Please, point of information. I'm giving some information, not a point.
It seems like you're making the case for the rampant individualism that we already have, this idea of fear of failure. What about if it's we that even failed instead of people who are failing. Like the idea that we can start businesses from our bedrooms. When did that happen? About 50 years ago for you? That's not the reality that many...
No, I'm not that old. Let's be clear. I can tell you, I'm not that old.
Okay, fine. Let's not get distracted. I'm just making the point that things have moved on.
Oh, well, I know I may not be off this time, but I hope that you'll at least understand this. Understand this. That we can talk eloquently, as Laura did, about, I think let's write something like hyper inequality, distributive something or other, distributive retributive, economic externality, structural adjustment programs, or we can see the world in my terms, which life is a race. It is a race. I want you all to understand that. I believe it is a race. And let's do all we can to ensure that the start line is as fair as possible. And that needs a lot of thought from policymakers, government, political parties. Let's understand that it was Andrew Adonis's bravery that brought the academy programme. And it was Michael Gove that built on that with free schools. And that meant in my borough that parents were suddenly sending their children to schools in borough rather than sending them miles away somewhere else. Opportunity is the heart of good policy, and it's often the battle of ideas, bringing them together, that makes a real difference. So I want you to believe in that we have to have equality of opportunity, but not equality of outcome. Let's understand, no, I'm just winding up, and I hope I have wound you up. Let's understand that we have something here. We have freedom. Freedom to have my views without you saying that's not allowed because it's not in my little red book. Freedom to express my opinion. Freedom to believe what I believe, which I know is right in my heart. Oh no, I'm just winding you up. Freedom. Oh, I give way because you might have something good to say. I've got to please conclude, so be quick. Well, I think you're certainly embracing the mood music of the moment. However, I'm making a different case, and maybe some of it hasn't been transmitted to you, but my case is, let there be a clarion call for freedom. Let's understand that we have high levels of social protection. Yes, we've seen in this recent budget that extended. But I believe that the battle is around how we move away from dividing the pie equally and having equality of outcome, and how we supercharge opportunity and ensure that we have greater social mobility. So that's my conclusion.